But this video is going to be a little bit different to the usual content we put out on the channel. Today I want to talk a little bit about Yu-Gi-Oh! Cross Duel, which is a new mobile game that was released not too long ago. Now, it did have a soft release several months ago, but it's actually come out globally only recently. It's been out for a few weeks so far, and it's an interesting one. The main reason I was gravitating towards this mobile game was because it does include Rush Duel cards and Rush Duel characters, which I thought was quite interesting because we haven't seen that really explored outside of the Switch game. So I suppose we should first talk about what Cross Duel is. So Cross Duel is basically four-way Yu-Gi-Oh! With special rules implemented. So the key game mode here is 4 different players all battling against each other and trying to get someone's life points to 0. And the game ends whenever a player's life reaches 0. So the first way this differs from other traditional Yu-Gi-Oh! Games is that you will have an ace monster. This is a monster that you designate during deck building, which you will basically say, this is my powerful monster and I can give it extra abilities. This game does feature monster customization. So as you can see here, each of the monsters has a certain number of skills they can unlock. The ultra rare cards have 19 different skills they can unlock, whereas the super rare cards have 15 and the rares have 13. If we take a look at one of our ultra rare cards, we can see that these are the skills that can be unlocked. So these large pink skills are the special skills. These are only found on super rare and ultra rare cards and basically are a unique kind of effect that only this card gets to kind of give it a little bit of extra flavor. The second special skill, also known as the master skill, is better than the other one. It's just kind of an upgraded version. For example, Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius's master skill is while on the field, all of your monsters gain 1 extra attack and all of your monsters with 2 or more extra attack gain pierce. So extra attack, you would think would be an extra attack, but is actually when attacking directly, you gain 500 attack. And pierce, you'll be able to attack your opponent even when you have attacked the defense position monster in their monster zone or guardian monster zone. We'll touch more on that later, but basically this 2-card combo, or 2-skill combo, allows you to attack a monster in defense, then attack directly and get a power boost as you're doing so, which is quite an interesting little strategy. So in order to unlock these skills, you do have to pay. And we do this using materials, which you gather by just playing the game, completing missions, etc, etc. You will just slowly gather up these materials and be able to unlock these different skills. If you're using a card as your ace monster, then you can have multiple skills equipped at once. So, for example, Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius here, we only have the 1 skill unlocked at the moment, but if we had duplicate cards or enough cards of the same rarity, we could spend those to unlock more of these slots and basically make our boss monster more powerful, which is... it's a little bit shaky, but we'll cover that a little bit later. So the next thing I want to talk about is spells. So spell cards in this game work a little bit differently. You activate them from your hand after every player has finished summoning monsters and their enter the battlefield effects are finished resolving. At this point, every player has a chance to activate spells, and they just kind of immediately happen, and then it will give everyone else a chance to respond if anyone wants to throw in another spell. So for example, if I threw in Horn of the Unicorn, which increases a monster's attack power by 600, another player could then throw their Horn of the Unicorn to now make their monster bigger than mine, and then I could try and respond to that with another card if I wanted to. Basically, spell cards are all quick play. We can't use them when traps would be activated, which we'll talk about now. So trap cards also work a little bit differently. So you set them the same time you play monsters, and their effects will trigger whenever just the condition is met. So if I was to set a trap card that said when a monster enters the battlefield, the second a monster enters the battlefield, that card will flip, its effect will immediately happen, and it will just trigger straight away. Because of this, I haven't seen traps being used as much. There are a few decks which do rely on traps, but for the most part, traps seem a little bit unreliable, let's say. Let's talk about the different game modes in Cross Duel. The first we're going to talk about is Tag Duels. Now, Tag Duels is an interesting one because you choose a partner to play with you. So in this case, I've chosen Luke, and that means that when I'm battling, Luke will be my partner and we'll kind of have a 2v2. We'll still be on the Cross Duel field. But these act as our PvE mode. So even though I have Luke as my partner, I will be against 2 NPCs. It will typically be just a pair from one of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. So for example, if I was to go to the Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s and I go to select opponent, it will let me fight Yuga and Luke, which doesn't really give too much trouble. The NPCs are basically just a farmable thing for you to gather materials, which you can gather just a bunch of different rewards for beating these NPCs, such as crafting materials, gems so we can do gacha, and other cosmetics. And the way they gate you from farming these endlessly is by making them cost energy. So as you can see down here, we have 6 energy. We've currently already spent 2, so we have 4 remaining, which means we can do 4 more battles, and these regenerate once every hour. But you can unlock ways to refresh them by using these energy recovery items. You can get about 1 of these a day. So kind of adds up, which is nice, but still it's a way just to keep you from completely farming out all at once. So the next mode we want to talk about is Raid Duels. So Raid Duels is where you have 4 players, sometimes bots if there aren't enough players, team up to try and fight one NPC in the middle. At the moment, this is Riser the Storm Monarch, but it does seem to rotate between different monarchs depending on which month we're on. I found that for the early levels of fighting these raids, you could basically just use whatever deck you wanted. They weren't particularly difficult. The effects they used weren't very impactful, so you could kind of just beat your way through. But as you get to some of the higher levels, you start needing to have your deck customized specifically to take it out. And for that reason, I've been using Elemental Hero Neos as my ace monster, since it has a special ability. Whenever it would be destroyed, it can return to the hand and cost 1 less tribute, but have 1,000 less attack. This can be very relevant because in Raid Duels, all of your ace monsters gain an effect, which basically says if they're fighting the raid monster, they'll get plus 1,000 attack, which means when this card attacks the raid monster, it will be attacking for 2,500, which is better than some of the 2,000 attackers that you can normally summon just regularly. Another big part of Raid Duels is making sure you have cards that have immunity to bounce. This is because raid bosses, at least Riser at the moment, bounces your cards to hand quite frequently with a trap card that can bounce them from your middle zone when you're trying to attack, or a spell card that bounces them from the side lanes. So every turn in these Raid Duels, the boss will do a certain number of things, and that includes creating barricades. These barricades can be destroyed and will take a certain number of attacks to get rid of. So if you don't destroy them, the boss gets extra abilities, such as a shield that will prevent it from taking damage, or the ability to gain more attack power, so you'll lose more life points each turn. And basically, it becomes a race to try and destroy the boss as soon as possible, whilst also maintaining your own life so you don't die. You have 8 turns to kill the boss. If you don't manage to do it in time, game over, everyone loses. If you do manage to do it in time, fantastic, you unlock the next rank and you get to try it again, but at a harder difficulty. Because of this, it means there is a lot of replayability here, which I find really good because I enjoy grinding this kind of mode out and I enjoy making my deck better. But there are some problems with that as well, which comes in the form of if you queue into a bunch of bots, a lot of the time the bots make less than ideal moves, which can cost you the game. And if you queue into players that are maybe haven't built their deck as well or make a few mistakes, it really hurts. And so as you get to the higher levels, you could really be let down by the other players, which can be a bit of a shame. The other thing is this mode can be pay to win / luck based because, for example, if I had multiple copies of Elemental Hero Neos, or if I had a lot of Ultra Rares, I could have unlocked additional monster skill slots, which means my Neos would just naturally be stronger. Sometimes when I queue into these, people have got the improved master skill, which just gives them extra abilities, such as super speed, which in this case wouldn't be too relevant, but could also give it SP boost. So only in raids, when summoned, it gains 2,000 attack, which means their Neos will just be doing 2,000 more damage than my Neos, which means in those situations, especially if I start getting up to the high 20s, that will mean that I will now be the detriment to the team because I haven't either splashed out or gotten lucky to upgrade my Neos to maximum. So it's a little bit tricky. Needless to say, it's kind of a problem, and it would be really nice to not have this be the case, but it does seem a little bit pay to win, so it's a bit of a shame. So this point will carry over into our final game mode, ranked matches. So this is the PvP mode, and this is where we will be primarily spending a lot of our time in this game if we're trying to play it seriously. So this is a tricky one. So when you start, there'll be a 4-player game, but sometimes at the lower ranks, you will have a bot in the game. I don't know if this is 100%, but a few times I've played ranked, there has been a bot in the game, which is a Yu-Gi-Oh character. For me, the first game I played, Reginald Shark Castle was there, and so he's kind of just a bot that you can just kind of smack a lot. So when you start the game, there will be a special card in the middle, and that card will be unbelievably powerful. In the games I played, it was Ring of Destruction and Dark Hole, both of which were very game determinative, extremely powerful cards. So there are cards you can have which have an ability called Speed Boost, and that will let them basically traverse the lanes faster. So if you have a Speed Boost card, you can try and get there first, but then another player could try and throw a spell or a trap at you to try and stop you from getting there. And it becomes this kind of race to try and get to this middle card. So I have found the PvP quite fun. You do tend to try and focus one person, and if you're losing, you kind of just get dicked really hard. But just because you are losing doesn't mean you can't do anything. A lot of the time, the person in last place gets to dictate kind of who's going to come first and who's going to come second by choosing to defend one lane over another, or just keep putting all their monsters in one place and trying to attack back. So it can get a little bit tricky. And a lot of the time, I feel like you're playing for top 2 rather than just trying to go for the win, because a lot of the time you can't really be in control of that. But this leads on to another problem. So the 2 PvP games that I have played, which I've been trying to play to complete quests, have both resulted in disconnects on turns 7 and 8, which is a problem because both of those games I was in a commanding position about to win or come second, and then the game just disappeared. It just said the connection is gone. My internet connection was fine, so it's clearly on Konami servers crapping out, and then the game just disappeared. I couldn't reconnect into it. My match history didn't show that I even played a game, and that just kind of sucked. So I don't know if another player disconnected and that interrupted it, or if it was just Konami servers being shit, but the 2 times I tried to do it and winning, unfortunately just cut out and didn't count as games. So after this, I went and tried to look it up, and apparently other people had been having a similar problem. So apparently this is just a thing, so I hope this gets fixed soon so we can actually play games properly. I'm sure that not everyone's been experiencing this problem, but it's happened twice now, and I've seen other people using it. We're still going to jump into some more ranked and see if we can't do any better, but we've also been trying to put off playing ranked until hopefully we get more copies of Dragius. This is because Dragius currently only has 1 skill slot unlocked. That means we are at a bit of a detriment when it comes to playing player versus player, because if anyone else has more than 1 skill slot unlocked on their race monster, they will just be stronger than us, which is... because the game is a 4-way game, it doesn't necessarily matter too much, because if it was a 1v1, they would just immediately have a boost over me. But in an environment where we could all team up on someone who's spent a lot of money or got very lucky, can alleviate that in some ways, but that's assuming all of the players are kind of on the same page and decide to do that. But for example, if I were to get 2 more copies of Multi-Strike Dragius and unlock 2 more skill slots, my Dragius could have extra attack and immunity to destruction effects. And since a card like Blue Eyes White Dragon, who has an ability that can destroy a monster when it enters the battlefield, is so prevalent, that means it would protect me from that Blue Eyes effect and allow me to have an extra attack, which again isn't an extra attack, is an extra 500 when attacking directly, but would then trigger my master skill, which is whenever I have... which is all of my monsters gain 1 extra attack. So it has 1 extra attack, the effect would give it an extra attack, and then if he has 2 or more extra attacks, he gains Pierce. So just having access to these skills would just make my chances of winning in PvP so much higher, which is again where it becomes pay to win, or just get very, very lucky. Either way, it is not an ideal system, and it will reward people that basically just get really lucky or pay a lot, because that's the other problem. There is no way to craft specific cards that you need. If you want to get specifically Dragius pools, I just have to get lucky. Now, what I can do is spend 4 of any ultra rare to make specifically an upgrade in any ultra rare, which is fine. So I already have 2 spare ultra rares, which by the way, they have to be spares. They can't just be, they have to be extra copies beyond the first copy you have. So I have 2 copies of Exodia, and I think I have 2 copies of Stardust Dragon, which means I am now only 2 copies away from being able to upgrade, get my first slot unlocked on this card. Or I just need to find 1 more copy of Dragius. Ideally, I would like that so that my Dragius is stronger, but what can you do? So a lot like Master Duel, Cross Duel was quite generous at the start, and I feel like I got to pull a lot of cards from the gachas quite early. A lot of the missions that they give you are very good at kind of funneling resources into you and letting you kind of open a lot of packs to try and get you started, which is nice. But after that kind of initial bout, it started to slow down. The daily quests are fine, but they do not give you much in total. You can get about 20 gems a day from doing the daily quests, and then you'll try and get more as you unlock stuff from other sources, but you end up getting to pull a lot more infrequently, especially if you're trying to go for those 10 pulls, which again, there's no benefit to doing a 10 pull, it's just feels nice to do a 10 pull. So if we go take a look at the free-to-play gacha, we only have enough to do 1 draw at the moment, but we might as well see what we get. Very flashy. Let's see what we get. And we get anything nice? Oh, we got an ultra rare. So double attack is a nice one. Wall of Ring Up, not sure it does. Let's see what ultra rare we get. We get number 39 Utopia. So this isn't a spare because this is my first number 39 Utopia, which is a shame because that way, if I did get it, I would have only been 1 away from upgrading on Dragius. But Utopia is a nice one. I think it is actually pretty good in raid duels, so we might swap over to this depending. But yeah, Unfortunately, it wasn't Dragius, which is what we were looking for, and it wasn't a extra spare copy of an Ultra Rare, which also would have put us closer to upgrading our Dragius, which is kind of where we're going with this deck. So I do feel like if you were trying to play this game very seriously, the best thing to do would be to re-roll. Start playing it, do the first couple of easy missions, get some of the free Ultra Rare tickets that you can get a hold of, open your gacha packs, see if you got exactly the Ultra Rare you're looking for, and if you don't, just restart and restart and restart and restart. It's probably worth it. I would probably do this until I got at least one extra copy of the Ace Monster I wanted, in this case Dragius, but we're not really playing this very hardcore, we're just kind of playing it casually, so we're not going to bother doing that for this account, but that's what I would recommend if that's something you wanted to do. So final thoughts, I think Cross Duel is neat. It is cool to have a 4-player Yu-Gi-Oh game. It would have been nice if we could have had a 4-player Rush Duel game or a 4-player Master Rule game, or just put a 4-player mode into Master Duel. That would have been really cool. I think the raid duels are really fun. Just having a co-op PvE mode I think is always a good time. The tag duels are just kind of a grind. They're there to take up time and just slowly give you resources. Ranked matches are fun, if not incredibly pay to win. If I had a fully upgraded card, I'd probably feel like they were pretty fun, or a lot more fun. And if the servers worked, again, it would be a lot more fun. The gacha is extremely random, and again, pay to win. But again, if you're just looking for the raid duels and the tag duels, this game is pretty fun, to be honest. I've been having a pretty good time with it. The raid duels, again, get a little bit frustrating when you get to the higher ranks and you just feel like you need to have a very powerful ace monster. And if I didn't have that Neos, I would probably still be using Dragius in there, and his effects are basically completely useless in that game mode, which kind of sucks. But yeah, this is... I think that's all I've got to say about this for now. Probably put out another video soon talking about my deck that I'm currently playing, which is obviously a Dragius deck. But yeah, other than that, this has been Cross Duel, and watch the next one. Thanks for watching.